We're looking at the top 30 momentum companies on the ASX and the 30 best launchpad stocks. That's where they show up before they become momentum leaders, or after the market's fallen for a whole month and off about 10% or just shy of it. We're looking for the next leaders. So that's where we'll look to for the launchpad, because that's where they come from. Gary Glover has been through both lists, the top 30 momentum and the top 30 launchpad, to identify best themes, the best charts, trading opportunities, and lessons to learn from, because we all like to study the market leaders so that we can identify when they come up next and how to trade them, where to put our entries, our stops, and so on. That list is shared with members on the evening before. So it was yesterday afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, and they get to pull out their requests and say, look, can you have a look at this chart or this one from those two lists? And we're going to do that right now. Good afternoon, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good.
The conversation we were having before was about your timings and looking at the market. I think you were saying it was about Valentine's Day where we saw it peak last time, or in February. So how do you feel almost a month on? Is it not quite enough for you, or what are you thinking?
I feel like we're getting close there. I just noticed that in the past there's some of these more aggressive sell-offs there. They've, like I looked for sort of some of the GAN cycles there. So like a lot of them there, I think, trying to think about the market, like in recent years there, we've had quite a few either 30 or 45 day. So 30 is sort of so we're looking at, like most cycles are sort of like, can be a year cycle, a half year, a quarter year. And then there are a portion of those as well. So 30 and 45 are probably the shortest duration in terms of the correction there. So I think the COVID sell-off, which was probably one of the shorter, more aggressive ones, 30 days. I think we've had a couple of 30-day sell-offs recently. 23 aggressive sell-off was about 45 calendar days. But yeah, so we're only a couple of days away from being, maybe a 30-day aggressive sell-off there. We're only about 50 points away from the 50% correction as well. So a few times there, like our market loves pulling back to the 50% of the range there. So it might be the 23 range on it. So yeah, so we just got a few. So I like to sort of see timing, and then if it matches up with price or sort of a level, that makes it kind of interesting as well. So market certainly had a pretty aggressive sell there. There are lots of stocks that are off 20% here, while Unix is like 10 or 12% off its low. So just a really quick correction there. As we know, as per our Tuesday video there, we're sort of talking about, the first quarter weakness sort of thing. Mid-March is, so many lows there. I think we've had so many, like 14th and 15th of March sort of lows as well. So around those sort of timing. So we just feels like we're pretty close here. Just need a little bit further to go here, a little bit more. But yeah, don't want to jump the gun here. But yeah, just looking pretty interesting there. Looking like most of the damage is done here. So
For those who don't know, we're recording on the 13th of March, and Gary's video was 2 days ago talking about the cycles. You want to go into more depth of what he's talking about, 50% ranges, check out that video. We put a link up here. But you've also done your homework and looked at the top 30 momentum companies. When you're looking through that list, which charts are coming out to you is something that you want to study and look at and add to your watch list?
yeah, I was hoping we're going to see tons of stocks show relative strength there and maybe tightening up here, but we're just not seeing too many great setups there. We're not seeing too many sectors. So the last couple of weeks, I think I sort of jokingly said, oh, this sector looked good. I saw like 3 or 4 names. One day they've had 2 days up, and then 2 days later they get belted. Last week we saw another sector, sort of a few names on the list, and then it's got hit as well. So so far, I think, we were joking this morning that lithium was on the list today. We saw quite a few lithium stocks bouncing today, which is kind of, it's kind of exciting. But the reality is the last 2 times other sort of thing sectors do this, a week later they're on the other side of it. So we're not seeing too much relative strength there. I think, we're still seeing a few gold names there, Chris, as well. So, I was just talking about MHK. Yeah, nice DCP there's tightened up under the low. Pretty heavy volume the last few days as well. So just noticed that was on the list as well. But yeah, just seeing probably the gold's probably still the reasonable one there. But other than that, we're just not seeing too many names on there. So lots of smalls on the list as well. So not sort of seeing any, so not too many mids or larges on the list there. So we're probably just going to have to wait a bit longer there. I think we might be waiting, I sort of said to you, I think, hopefully we get a low here in the next week or so, and then we look 2 weeks down the track, we should be, the strongest name should be at 52-week highs, then 2 weeks of the low. So we might be waiting for that before we really start to get some really good signals there. So at the moment there, you've got to keep your powder dry, you've got to preserve your capital, and just keep doing the homework there. I've got a list I've gone through a bit of a list and I've narrowed it down, got a few names there, most of them a bit small. There's a few weekly setups there that I need to do some more homework on, but this is the time that we sort of doing the groundwork there. I think the AQD was the first one. They're pretty small. Had a pretty nice pop there. It's pulled back, pretty light volume on the pullback. Had a bit of a bounce again there, but hasn't really taken off here so far. Volume's okay, so maybe it needs a bit more time there. CVW number 5. Well, this is sort of building okay there, so starting to move up. Interesting that this stock, Chris, is Clearview, CVW.
Yep.
And I noticed on the list there's another Clearview, CPV, which has popped and then come straight back there. I wonder whether people are buying the right stock.
We've seen that so many times in the last 20 years. It was, I can't remember the mining company, but there were two miners and one of them had an M and an N in the replacement space, and they both rallied together with different commodities until one of them actually just really started falling back.
Because one's Clearview, VIEW, and the other one's Clearview as in VUE. But gee, they're pretty similar. And so so I wonder whether people are buying the right, because that was number 1 on that momentum. On the launch pad was the CPV. So, and then I saw it get hit the next day. It's like, oh, maybe people bought the wrong stock. Yeah. As I say, it definitely happened before. So
it definitely has happened before. That's for sure.
Yeah, but the CVW there, that's obviously had some good news there and rallied there. So I'd be careful about the other one.
There's a BCP in there as well. One of those is set behind or VCP is all we're talking about.
Yeah, a bit there, sort of obviously coming off a bit of I guess the worry there is you're sort of coming off a deep low there, but I guess it did do a lot of work there. That's maybe that's what we're going to start looking for, this type of setup, Chris, as well. Seeing stocks that have had a bit of a bounce there, congesting there, and then coming through. Look for that sort of congestion there. And at least that way you see here we start to get above the 50 and sit on top of the 50, and then we're coming through. At the moment, I would hesitate. Most of the setups I'm looking at are all under the 50-day moving average, which is just that's one of the boxes I sort of
need ticks.
Yeah, I don't have to have it ticked, but that means every other box has to be ticked, and I'm a little bit. It's not the perfect setup for me, so it doesn't have my full conviction. So WAF was the one that obviously that has had a big move here. So this is probably one to print off here, Chris. For those sort of traders there, because that's a good setup there. We're seeing the sector be pretty strong gold here. The whole thing's sort of congested under the high here. And then we started to come through, started to see, uptick in volume, and it would come through there. So that, this is a sort of setup there that you probably want to add to your arsenal, sort of, whether you keep a digital library or whether you keep a, print off charts and make notes here. But this is definitely one to be studied, that type of setup. So definitely one that I've added into my file there. Let's skip one here, SGI. This is one that's been on the list a few times there. We had that few little tightening phases there, a little bit of a VCP in here, a little high tight flag in here. Still not too bad here, really. I mean, it's had a few waves now, so that's getting into the, once you sort of have those, you've had one drive, second drive, a third, and a fourth drive. So once you start to sort of have 4 or 5 drives there, you are sort of getting into that riskier segment. But one thing we haven't seen here is we haven't seen too much aggressive selling here, isn't that? In the last couple of, I know it's off a bit today here, but I can't see any heavy selling through here. And the only we did see one day there where it actually recovered off its lows there, and that was probably the most volume. So kind of told me just to keep an eye on this stock. I sort of circled this one. I thought, well, it's actually, market is pretty weak here. This is holding up here. Still no selling in there. So definitely got to respect that one. So it still looks pretty good. VGL, I think was number 13. This is, again, there's another nice, VCP here, tightening up under the high. Pretty hard to sort of see the volume. It's a little bit, I think this one here, I did like to look at this there, but when I looked at the market depth, Chris, it was hard to think like layers. I had to think, in terms of what position size that I wanted to get, I'd have to go through 3 price levels to get my fill. And that's like a no-no for me. So, but yeah, I thought the chart looked pretty good.
That'd be easy to be left high and dry when the market drops away and the buyers suddenly run out and then it turns against you and you got to pull your stop.
Yeah.
There's no one left. You are high and dry and you're spending the whole day trying to trade out.
That's right. Yeah. So I think it was after VGL's RXL. This is still a pretty robust chart there. Just thought, keep an eye on this one here. We've just seen some pretty good volume. If I look through the drives there, pretty chunky volume there. Pretty light there. The volume comes back in again. It's pretty robust. Pretty light again. Volume's not bad through here. Pulls back, get another chunky
handle, isn't it? That January through February. Back from
that's not a bad one. Yeah, that's probably through there. It's probably good actually consolidating under the high there. Does come through. You do get a reasonable throwback there. That's the problem with this. Yeah, with the smaller names there, you can't. Yeah, that's a good sign in seeing that volume, but can get throwbacks there. So to me, I probably would have got whipped out of that just by the size of it, but still looks okay to me. So chart's not bad. I think EOL. This had a pretty good run here, pretty extended. So it needs to have a bit of a pause here, Chris. You want to sort of, hopefully you can tighten up here and. But yeah, this needs time. Can't rule out another leg higher there. But yeah, it's a bit lightly traded. FWD. Notice that looks still pretty firm here so far. It's had a pretty good run there. It's only been one day of selling in the mix here recently. So sort of definitely suggesting keep an eye on that because really only the one day selling. It's been pretty light here otherwise.
What's interesting about Fleetwood I noticed is I was scrolling through the thematics in the last week, and in the contrast to the international auto industry, the Australian auto industry and those who supply parts into their both domestic or the international auto industry, they've been reasonably strong. It's just that there are no charts in there that I want to trade, but this one I've been surprised by.
Yeah, just on that weekly, I was come back to big level there, so just it might sort of do a bit of work here. So it looks okay on the daily. I think if you look at the weekly there, you see it's a bit of a resistance point. So this feels like it might do a bit of work here, but definitely one to watch there because it has been pretty strong. Drone Shield is, it made a little bit of a comeback here. So building here, it's like the volume's okay. Yeah, you got a lot of sellers in front here, so that's probably going to hold it back a bit. But yeah, that was a nice move there. Good volume up into that drive. Pull back there. Probably a little heavy on the sell here, but always going to attract some sellers there when you've had such a big move and then you're coming back here. As driven again. So yeah, it's okay here. It's not ideal for me though. Just always wary of the stocks that have come back after being the flavor of the month, I guess. Yeah. They can go again. We have seen a second leg. So Drone Shield potentially could have run a leg. So I can't rule it out. CYL looks still pretty robust there. He's looking a little extended there, but we do know that can sort of keep going there. Sort of, yeah, has sort of cut the 10 and 20 in the past there a few times and kept going. At 20 in the past is sort of roughly there, but I think this one's sort of shown here. The 50's probably been the better market for it. So you probably stay, maybe you give yourself a bit more room in the 20 and some at the 50 there, but it still looks okay. OML. Thought, might be a VCP setting up here, Chris, but it's a little loose there. It's getting, you prefer to see this tighten up here. It's just has had the ABC. There's pretty light volume on this pullback there. Has come out of this rally pretty decent there, but I'd like to see this tighten up first, really. It's a little loose there in terms of placing your stops there. Thought Nanosonic is pretty interesting there. I definitely thought you should keep an eye on this one here, just because it's had a pretty impulsive move. Good volume there, and then tighten up here. And again, we haven't seen too much selling in here, like volume-wise. So, that was a pretty, has any selling day there, Chris, but look at the size of that range. So for such a big wide bar down after such a big move there, you'd probably think that should be more. The volume should have been heavier than that. So not really seeing. So this one's sort of telling me just to keep an eye on Nanosonics there, because I think the bigger picture there, just sort of building here. But yeah, I think the one thing I'm looking for, Chris, for a lot of stocks here is, because we've had a pretty decent pullback there, is nothing's looking really great on the dailies. I sort of started to look at the weekly, so to try and sort of scan the stocks that are showing a bit of strength there, maybe over the last month or three, and maybe that are looking good on the monthly. And then, because everything's come back a reasonable amount, what we want to do is we actually want to see stocks sit on top of the previous high on the weekly. So it still leaves the weekly trend intact. So on daily, like, a lot of things are getting broken, a lot of things below the 50. So it's hard to see too much. But if you see something that's come back on the weekly and sat maybe on top of the previous high on the weekly, then that still leaves the longer term trend in a pretty firm place. And so that's the sort of thing that I'm trying to look for. What stocks are probably looking strongest on the weekly charts, because the dailies are sort of not really giving us too many clear signs there at the moment. Just, everything's sort of showing pretty weakness there. MP1, again, been pretty nice rally here. It's pulled back again. The has gone below the 10 and 20, so it's come back a bit deeper there. Bit more selling in here. We're sort of definitely, did gap up there, but then met selling now. It's been robust selling all the way through here. So again, you're probably gonna just not seeing, great sort of stuff there. I think WI was the last one on the list there. This one's looking okay, just a bit too small for me. I just
chart though, but
did like the volume profile. Yeah, definitely seeing some chunky volume on the way through it. So it did look okay.
well, that leaves two others that from the request that haven't been covered, which was names you've definitely looked at before. EVS, Echo Victor Sierra.
Yeah, kind of gapped up. Really, it's hard to trade after a gap up like that. It's sort of, yeah.
He's a hard trade. That's so my only question for you on that one, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer. Episodic pivot. That's probably too far for you to be comfortable for it to continue on, is it?
Yeah, I have to look at that. What that news is there, whether it's a takeover news or it's actually a good story news. If it's a good story news, then maybe it can kind of keep going. But yeah, it's personally too small for me. Yeah. The volume profile is still pretty good. But you saw the 2 days up, pretty good volume, pull back on a lighter volume. So it's good volume again up to the, and then pull back, pretty light volume, and then good volume again. So volume profile does look right.
That's 6 days inside the last 6 days are inside the 7th day, which is rare, but also a good coil to see. But as you said, small caps so hard to trade. The last one on the worth looking, the news side of things. It's an Enviro Suite upgraded to overweight after results. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, looks like news driven. Yeah.
Yeah. And then AQD, Alpha Quebec Delta.
AQ, that the first one. I did show that one actually. AQD, yeah.
Yeah, right at the start. No,
yeah.
So
yeah, it looks okay there. Just sort of like it's had a big move and then pulled back, and then it's going to go again. It should show probably firmer, but the volume's been okay without being great. So yeah, and in a stronger market, maybe that might have got a bit more momentum.
Well, this is the part where we move into the launch pad, and normally we'll talk about the leading themes, what we're seeing light up. Before we recorded, we went through an extensive list together of themes that we just weren't seeing, and occasionally you see one or two in it, but not enough. The thematics weren't showing up with a high consistency of similar chart patterns, which we'd like to see. Where there's a very strong theme, we'll also see similarities in those patterns, basing, breakouts, that kind of thing. Gary did mention a couple of lithium, so we'll see what comes out of this list and what Gary has found in the top 30 launchpad. And then there's also a question we'll cover at the end that one of the members asked, and I thought that was actually quite interesting to look back in this month where we've seen the market get hit hard. Well, what do we expect to happen for those that were leading the momentum a month ago? We'll cover that in a second. We'll just drill down into these launchpad leaders. You've got the list of this week's best performers on the launchpad, Gary. Where did you start with that one?
So CPV obviously was the one that's number one on the launchpad there. So this is one I'll probably have a close look at this one because it does have the same name as another stock which has done pretty well. So just want to make sure that one's it's coming out for pretty nasty low there. Did get sold off straight away. I know it's up today here, but yeah, I'll be pretty careful that one. IDA, I thought number 3 on the list there. It's sort of one that's been pretty robust there. Too small for me, but trend's been pretty robust there. It's been some reasonable sort of volume blocks for the small one there. So far it seems to be holding up, but again, too small for me. LAU, yeah, look, had a bit of a pop and congestion there, but I don't really like coming off those sort of deep lows. Thought the TOK looked interesting there. Just had a pretty good run and is sort of congesting there. So again, if we look out to the weekly, we can see this is a pretty strong rally, and this is just sort of had an ABC and congested here. So the weekly chart does leave it in the top half there and holding up quite well. Daily there, you just like to sort of see it tighten up here, but it's a little loose. Look how the stock's a little gappy there. So probably means it's not that liquid there. So it's probably going to rule it out for me, but I thought the chart itself looked okay. OCC, I thought this looked okay here. I mean, this has had a pretty strong run here. I know the trend has overbalanced a bit here now. It's probably the largest correction of the moves and there was some decent volume there, but it can potentially go again. And look, the market has pulled back pretty deep. So this is sort of, it's sort of hanging in there actually. So I thought, this is definitely worth keeping an eye on here. Just I'd love to see this tighten up here. Maybe, this is still a contender for a B-wave break there, even though it will be under the 50. I wouldn't rule this out there. It's just, there's still a bit of activity there, stock-wise there. So I thought that, that was okay there. NYL is on the list there. It's sort of hanging right there. I thought it did sort of pop and pull back here. So yeah, probably, okay with that being great. AIS, it's actually a good little setup here, this one. Has come back a little deep there in terms of the rally that preceded it. But you do have that tightening, kind of VCP sort of style there. It's just the problem there, you've got such a long downtrend there and so many losers in front of you. So it's going to be up against it. So again, these ones can come out of here, but it's just, you really need something, spectacular. Just not seeing, sure good volume into that first high there, but yeah, you need to sort of see something there, but it needs some sort of catalyst there, some sort of game changer sort of news personally, but it's okay, but not, just not great. MTH I thought was interesting. That's had that really strong impulsive move and has pulled back there, but sort of sits in the top half grid. So this is a sort of setup that we often do see for these stocks that do come out of here. So this is definitely one to keep an eye on here. So I did circle this one here. I thought this looked quite good actually. So it definitely worth looking at this stock, doing a bit more homework on it. Yeah, just one to watch there, because we know so sometimes they can go through like 5 to 7 months of sort of congestion before they come out. The fact that it hasn't got buried here like a lot of other things have, and the market's been pretty weak, it's actually held up quite well. So it's actually not a bad sign there. So,
Well, when you say we know they can go through 5 to 7 months worth of congestion, we know that's from your studies of the model book where you've looked at and studied the market leaders in the last 4 or 5 years, and that's quite a consistent pattern. So I interject there to say if anyone wants to really study that, and it's hard to find charts to study right now because of what it looks like, spend some time on that model book, which we'll put a link on screen. So that's research that's coming back to pay dividends now at this part of the cycle.
yeah, I've got a potential solution to that, Chris. I was going to suggest something. I mean, because I sort of started to print off. I'm trying to. I know so we obviously look at the biggest winners in the past, and then learn from that. Obviously, the best traders, they go through the model books and stuff there. But I think I do love that that market analyst there. Sort of, I think I mentioned maybe 3 or 6 months ago how you got to study the trades that you trade, and so how well you do and how well you don't, so you can learn from your mistakes. But you should also be looking at the trades you missed as well. So what's some of the big movers for the week there? So I was kind of thinking, how could we study some of the missed trades and stuff there? So I thought maybe on my Twitter handle, I could basically sort of maybe look at a trade I missed for the week, or maybe the chart of the week there. Maybe some other people can add to those, or maybe each week we might get a few people who post the chart there, maybe a trade that's missed, maybe something which has moved pretty big, and maybe mark it up so we can all learn from it. Maybe we can all, so we can see those charts, go through, learn from it. So I don't know, just an idea. Look, maybe I'll post a couple of charts on my Twitter handle the next couple of Fridays and see takes off or not. If it doesn't take off, that's fine.
That's a good idea.
It might be, maybe I'll give it a title or something, but yeah, we'll maybe that's another avenue to sort of try and look at and try and learn from that.
Yeah, definitely.
Try and add to the trading community.
Let's do that. And the guy who wrote the Black Swan, he called all the books in his library the anti-library, the books that he hadn't read yet. Seems like the AntiTrades.
Yeah.
Trades I didn't take.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, EOS number 17. This again, I mean, this is a VCP here on the bigger picture there, but it is pretty messy. So it's a bit loose there. But I did drill into the weekly and think, oh, this is it is sort of coming off a base there, Chris, as well. Look, it's got a lot of losers in front of it there, and it's looking to see here over the last couple of years. It's really, look, it has, look, it's gone from 50 cents up to $2. So yeah, I think say that's a fair move there, but relative to where it's come from, it's doing it tough. But the whole thing is tightening up here. There's definitely been, increase in maybe trading volumes here as well. So I thought this is definitely one to keep an eye on. And we know that sort of sector's been pretty obviously Drone Shield as well. And yes, some of the names have done a run in the sector. So just one to keep an eye on there. It's pretty messy here. I don't see any sort of setup there in the daily, but the weekly sort of told me just to keep an eye on the stock. What do we got there? AIM. Again, sort of, being a strong name here, has had a bit of a overbalance of the trend. So I did overbalance there. So, but now we've sort of got our A, B, so the C leg here. So can we potentially build again, like build another base here? So I thought this actually has held up pretty well, considering how weak the market is. So
that possibly a VCP.
Yeah, you got a little tightening pattern in here. So yeah, you'd like to sort of probably come through, maybe the low cheats around 74.5, but coming through here, but definitely stock which is sort of showing a bit of strength there. Maybe this will be one of the stocks that might be at a 52-week high in the next 2 or 3 weeks if we find a low. So, but this is one of the better looking charts here actually, and showing some relative strength there. And hasn't really pulled back that much, considering its move here. So, and it has now used up a bit of time. So that, if you look at that rally there, so what, June up into November, so we're sort of 5 months there, and now we've sort of seen sort of NOV where 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, almost 5 months sort of here. So used up a similar amount of time and haven't really pulled back here. So that's actually a pretty good sign there that we're struggling to go down. We stayed in the top half there. So definitely sort of goes on the radar there. GYG, I mean, not a lot of people don't like this stock here, but this is a type of stock which is littered throughout the model books. Those sort of Chipotles, yeah. So so don't rule the stock out here. I know it's had a pretty decent sell off there, but it could set up again. It's actually quite good it's come back here because I still think it's still the rollout potentially can go. Yeah, it's going to be overvalued. It can probably stay overvalued, and it'll probably be the free float will be pretty high as well, Chris. I imagine there'll be a lot of locked up shares might be able to sell for a couple of years in this. So it could move around a bit. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on this one here. Don't sort of put our biases aside. Let the chart show us there. But that's now sort of expanded to a new high and now expanded to a new low. So this is potential where it could start to build again. So yeah, I just put that on my on to watch here. I think EIQ was a bit of a question mark here. Chart has showed okay strength, bit messy, but really hasn't shown too much weakness there. So looks okay. And where we got the DMV, which is one of the other big names there, has pulled back quite a bit, but is staying off its lows here. But yeah, nothing to write home about there. So you want to sort of see a tighter pattern there before we get involved in there. Yeah. So I mean, like a lot of those stocks, if they come back like this, Chris, there, and then you want to see the whole thing tighten up here, and then eventually it might start to come out of it, So I don't know if we're going to go through like a long dated. I get the feeling we aren't going to go through a long dated correction here. It's been a pretty aggressive move down here, 30 days. So in my experience, when we see those 30 days or 45-day aggressive sell-offs there, the normally market will snap back. I was trying to actually. The one thing I do remember from doing a lot of analysis over the years is when we do see a really aggressive sell-off there, I can't remember the time frame. It might have been less than 90 days. Is that when the market bounced back, it bounces back to the 50%, almost
Instantly.
Yeah, but really quickly. So it doesn't go back to the high quickly, but it goes back to the midpoint really quickly.
And when you say the midpoint, because we're just talking about, you've mentioned the 50% twice here, so I'll just clarify. The 50% that we're almost on now, the far right-hand side of the chart, is from the 2023 lows to the highs that we had almost a month ago, 14th of February. And we've almost fallen back 50% of those gains. And then when you say the rally that happens pretty much from now, you're saying 50% of that 50%. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so let's say we came back a bit lower here. Once we find a low, we'll bounce back to the 50% of the range, so maybe somewhere up around 8,100.
Very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah. So we sort of tend to go back to that, So I don't know how I did some work also going to try and locate this there, but I remember being, when I sort of studied it, thought, wow, this is actually, it's a really quick move back to the 50%. But sometimes they, I think I saw a couple just pull up, just shy, but a majority went to the 50% or above. It's maybe 80, 90% would basically hit the 50% or go slightly above it before, but then they'd obviously retreat and do a work. And then, so you tend to get a really quick bounce out of the low and then come back and maybe make a higher low. And then you go through a bit of a building phase. But oftentimes when you get a fast move like this, you can get a fast move back to the midpoint.
Just what you're talking about there, I studied that from a different perspective, and it would have been 10, 15 years ago, and I've updated it as it come through. But looking back over market lows, just like you're talking about, I didn't calculate the 50%, but what I noticed was that they would rally with what I came to say more speed and less tact. And it was generally the 5 to 8 day period, you would have the large cap indices power through. So the large caps would rally very hard, very fast. And you'd have all the money flood in as if it was being hit into an ETF and it was just throwing it in from the market cap down. And then what would happen from the 8th day onwards, this is where my momentum trading would really come from. was that the things would become obvious and the money would stop coming in, or move out of the large caps that you're talking about, coming up to that 50%, which has driven the index. And then exactly what you were talking about at the start, which was quite often we'd see the new leaders up near their 52-week highs. And I used to study 52-week highs every single day I've been doing it for about 20 years. That's where they would come from. And they would be the next market leaders that would power on the next 3 to 6 months. But it would only happen after that sort of quick drive that you're talking about. So I didn't calculate the 50%, but I noticed pretty much a very similar phenomenon. And then the transition of investment going from the large caps into the mid and then into the smalls and those leading thematics. And then we're back into a normal market cycle where we want to be on the leaders. So yeah, we hadn't talked about that, but I'm interested that that's the observation you found of those quick lows.
Yeah, no, they can be, they can just bounce back pretty quickly. So yeah, I mean, some of them, like I think the COVID low, it actually didn't bounce back quickly. It actually bounced back and then just hit ground high, just kept going. So it actually wasn't one of the ones that snapped back so fast. So I think it took maybe 2 months maybe to get above the 50% level, maybe 45 days above the 50% range. So normally a bit slower than most. But if I look back, I'm just looking back at like say 2014, which is kind of a very similar looking setup to us. I think it snapped back probably 2/3 of the range in about maybe a month's time. So basically did almost like a V shape. I think it might have been 45 days to 60 days down. And I think it basically snapped back like a month, 2/3 of the range. Then it came back slightly longer. So maybe if I say 30 days, it might have pulled back, say 45 days, and come back and retest the low, but made a high low and then built again. So you can get that, yeah. So it can be pretty volatile. I was actually expecting it to calm down here, but maybe that's not going to happen for a while. So, yeah. So just ideally we see a low here in the next couple of days, would be nice. And then we could see a nice sharp bounce there, and then you might see a retest later on there, and then we climb back up to, like I think August that seems to be like March is a magnet for lows. August is a magnet for highs in those fifth and post-election years. And then we go through a bit of a soft period from August through to October and then finish the year strong, hopefully. So we'll see. But yeah, definitely interesting out there. But yeah, not too many setups there for us momentum traders. It's time to do some homework. Yeah, start scanning the market. But yeah, you just got to wait for your setups there. The really interesting thing there, if you've listened to Minervini, who's probably arguably one of the best momentum traders around, if ever, he often does not get involved until like a month or 2 months after the low. So his setups actually, he's often sort of out of the market and missing the first 5 or 7% in the rally, because the setups don't come there. So the setups come later on. So interesting, one of the best traders on the planet there is he's often not getting involved in the early stages of the bounce there. So don't feel like you have to rush into the market there because it feels like everything's on sale. The setups will set up for themselves and just be patient.
That gives me confidence in that research that we've just talked about is bouncing off the lows and waiting a week or so. Before we go, though, there were still 3 of the members' requests from the Launchpad, which might be interesting to look at. CYC, Charlie, Yankee, Charlie. So that's hit hard. I can see how it's on the Launchpad because it's quickly turned cycle, but I'm going to hazard a guess and say that you're going to say it's liquid and depth is too patchy for you to fill a trade.
Too deep a sell off there, too aggressive there. You want to see that. Yeah, it's just too aggressive. It's not showing the relative strength that I'm looking for.
No. And the other one's second last one, 4DX.
4DX. Yeah. Yeah, again, I thought this one was sort of promising there, later in the year there, but it just never really got going there. It got going late, but never really took off there. So it's gone lower here. Look at that selling, Chris, in there, the volume.
Yeah.
That's just yeah, it's pretty heavy. I mean, we've had a bit of a bounce here and there. We're already back on your lows here, so again, not showing too much strength there at all. So yeah,
It could show up to be stopping volume, but I think we need a bit more time before that becomes evident. The last one, MLG, Mike Lima Golf.
MLG, yeah, it looks not the worst chart here. I mean, the two things I do like is that it did sort of, this has been a downtrend here, so it did break a swing high and go to a new high. So actually, it's a bit of a change of character. And it has come back. There was a little bit of selling there, aggressive, but has popped here now. So potentially maybe you've got a first high low and has had a nice bounce to some okay volume then and tightened up here. So not the worst chart there, but still feels a bit early. Yeah, maybe this is going to do a bit more work here, but potential.
Nice. Well, they're the requests. As you said, you're going to look at some trades. I'll put forward a trade and put it out on Twitter, one that I've missed in the last week, and I'll put my reason why. But it's very painful because there weren't many profitable trades this week, and this one was very fast and something I'd studied for about 2 weeks waiting for it. So I'll kick that off, Gary, and if you want to think of one that you can put in there, being a trade that we missed. So it's always easy to talk about the book and the trades that we've taken. It's more painful to talk about the trades that we've missed, but that's where we're going to learn from. It's like having a football coach sit on the sidelines and tell you the mistakes that you're making after the game. Unless you review that tape and look at your errors, you're not really going to be becoming a better trader. But I'll probably leave those analogies to you, Gary, because you've been quite the football or soccer coach in your career. So he's got many titles under his belt, that man.
Yeah. So do you want me to tell you what it is, or you want me to, or are we going to save it for the? I'll post it on the Twitter or something.
Well, if you want, you can put it. You can share the chart there, and then we can mark it up and put it on Twitter. But you can just share it as we fade out the video. So that's
yeah. I thought this one was sort of one there. So sort of missed.
That was my one.
Yeah. There is a couple others there as well. I think EOL was a pretty decent setup there. I just did not see that one at all. Actually, did not see that tightening phase. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I traded that SKS there, so it kind of reminded me of that sort of setup there, going back in here. Yeah. So yeah, that was the other one that I looked at there, and obviously the BC8 was the other one that yeah, there was a nice little
There was.
nice little cup and handle there. Did sort of VCP, so you even got a little bit of a load sheet in here as well. So yeah, you could have come in a little bit early there just because it had that little hesitation there. So and I think the volume was pretty good on that day as well. So like, that was a good day there. So there's a trigger day as well. So
Right. Well, there you go. There's the AntiTrades. I'm going to still put that out on Twitter. We'll get the ball rolling and start that conversation. See if it picks up.
Yeah.
Comment below if you want us to cover the trades that we missed and how bitter it is for us. To that end, we say thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.